All right, y'all. I have a few minutes past the half-hour mark, and I know that your time is precious. So we are going to go ahead and dive in and get started. So the recording has started, just so y'all know. This webinar will be recorded, so you can go back and watch it too when it's convenient for you, or if you have to hop off or multitasking and thought you missed something, you can go back and watch it again. It'll be loaded on that First Year Experience YouTube page where the webinars have been all term long. I'm also going to flip on my camera. Hey, everybody. I hope you're having the most absolutely wonderful Thursday. I can't believe that we're already here in week 6, but I also can't believe that this week is almost already over. So we're just so excited that you are here today and spending the next about 30 minutes or so with myself. And we have a very special guest. Allison Johnson is here from our amazing academic support team. So first and foremost, as always, your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of instruction or course design that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center, the OAC, as soon as possible at 866-305-9430. You can also email the OAC at oac@snhu.edu or visit the Online Accessibility Center website. As a reminder, the Online Accessibility Center team is here to get y'all content in a way that works best for you and your learning style. So if you have questions about this, want to know if this is something that you might have the opportunity to do or work with, please reach out to that OAC team. A couple of webinar reminders. We are in an academic space, so always be mindful of your conduct. Microphones, cameras are not enabled, so please, please, please use the chat feature. That way, Allison and I can see if you have questions, or if you just want to say like, hey, like, let us know you're here, let us know where you're from, your major. Like I said earlier, that's one of the best parts of these webinars. I cannot see the chat when I am live in this format. So you guys will see I have my phone pulled up so I can try to catch the chat as much as I can. But just know if you have a really specific question, hang out at the end, let us know. That way we don't miss anybody. The other thing is I wanted to remind you guys that these webinars are not graded, no extra credit points, and I sure hope that you've been enjoying them all term long. So has anybody been watching the webinars either on demand or came to some of the live sessions when they were here earlier in the term? I sure hope that they've been helping you. So this week, what do we got on deck? So y'all have a journal assignment. And as a reminder, you have that discussion assignment too this week. So your initial discussion post, like always, is due here today by Thursday, right? And then your peer responses, minimum of 2, and that journal assignment are due by Sunday, okay? A couple of things I wanted to remind you about with this week's assignments for week 6 is for that journal assignment, you can just use a Microsoft Word document. So make sure that you have that or something compatible so you can upload that to your classroom space like you've been doing with your assignments and drafts all term long. But the other thing about your journal assignment is you can submit a video note assignment if you wanted to do that. Please make sure if you are using video notes or video submissions that you do have your notes like jotted down so that the instructor knows that you are the one that actually came up with that content. But that is an option, so it's out there. Reminder though, for those assignments, again, initial post due Thursday, peer responses Sunday, journal by Sunday. And if you get stuck or have questions, make sure you reach out to your instructor. With our discussion assignment this week, we are focusing in on how we listen to others with empathy in the online learning environment. Or how could you listen to others in the online learning environment with empathy? I know in my classroom, there's been a lot of really great discussion around how we just behave as online students and how when somebody is explaining their story or sharing their experiences, what are the ways that we can really make sure that those other students feel heard or feel seen in the discussion board as we kind of center around the topic of empathy. So that is the first question this week. You're going to be answering the discussion board. And the second one is, how have others listened to you with empathy? I had a couple of students that really gave some great examples of this in their discussion. So that can be helpful to you if you want to just provide examples as you're answering the questions. It'll really help drive your point home as your instructor and other students are reviewing it. So again, discussion. You guys are pros at this now. Initial discussion post due Thursday, minimum of 2 responses to your classmates due by Sunday. Don't forget those peer responses, either of y'all. You guys work way too hard to miss out on those points. And I don't know if any of you guys have had that happen where you like forgot to respond to your classmates, but you got your initial post done. It tanks your discussion grade. So make sure you're getting those classmate responses done. And then this week's journal assignment for week 6 is everything centers around the concept and the topic of feedback. So you have 4 different questions you're answering, but within those questions, is a couple of things you want to make sure that you cover in your responses. So the very first question is to describe your perceptions regarding receiving feedback. So what does feedback look like to you? What does it mean to you? What do you think about feedback? Some things to think about is how can receiving feedback make you feel? How can you improve your reaction to feedback? The second question you're going to be answering is to describe how you can use past feedback to inform how you give and receive feedback. So think about experiences where you have gotten feedback maybe on a graded paper, even in high school or in school, or maybe a review or an assessment like at your work. What did that feedback feel like? What did you learn from it? Maybe could you have changed, and what would you do moving forward? Question 3 is to describe the impact that diversity awareness has on giving and receiving feedback when communicating and collaborating with others. So why is it important? Does it make an impact? How does it make an impact? And then question 4, describe how you can use strategies for interacting with diverse groups of people as you give and receive feedback. So there's a lot of the word feedback in this week's discussion. Say it 5 times fast, right, y'all? But the biggest thing is you really want to consider how you take feedback, what your experience has been, what's important to know about feedback, why diversity awareness will help, or the impact that it can make as you give and receive feedback and working with others. Use examples, write and complete sentences, give the details. That'll help you do well in that assignment. And as always, if you get stuck, you have amazing support like the academic support team and the written feedback service, which Allison's going to talk about here in a little bit, to really help you be successful. Okay, I'm going to pause just for a quick second. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. It looks like everybody's doing good, so that's perfect. So as a reminder, your guidebook, y'all, you have been working on this document all term long. When you submitted each project draft in week 2, week 4, week 2, week 3, week 4, and week 5, those are all pieces and parts of your guidebook, okay? As a reminder, this document, when you submit it in week 7, needs to be one document, and it's worth 250 points. So it's a big deal to make sure that you submit this document under Module 7 so your instructor can grade it, okay? A couple of things that I wanted to point out to help you kind of connect the dots about this assignment and how to do it is, first and foremost, you're not creating a new document, okay? You're not starting from scratch. You are not picking a new scenario or a new conflict. Like, you're not starting all over. What you want to do is 2 different ways that students have done it. One, most students utilize the template all term long. And for each project draft, they either submitted the whole template with just pieces filled out, or they separated it out. So they turned in project draft 1 of the template was one assignment. Project draft 2 was another one. However you did it, if you utilize the template, you want to combine your documents or just use the document if you just kept using it all term long, so that you're submitting one document, the entire template filled out and completed. That's what you're submitting. If you were somebody that kind of didn't use the template, like you used the questions, but you didn't kind of follow that actual document, you kind of created your own. The biggest thing is you need to have one document that has all the pieces and parts. So all the questions, all your answers, all the things, all on one comprehensive document to turn in for your Module 7 guidebook, okay? Now, as you're putting this together into that one document, or if you're going back and looking over your previous feedback, which is what you want to do, you want to make sure you go back and check the gradebook. How did you do on your first project draft, your second one, your third one, your last one? Did your instructor give you any feedback about maybe you had to add in some examples, or maybe your point wasn't very clear, or maybe you needed to provide some extra details? If you had feedback like that from your graded project drafts, you want to make sure that when you turn in this final project, the guidebook next week in week 7, you want to make sure that you've made those changes. So for example, I will tell you that when I go to grade my students in my classroom, I pull up what they submitted for their guidebook, and I go back and pull up every single project draft. And if there was recommendations that I had for them to maybe expand their thoughts on something, or to write more information about something, or to give examples on something, I'm looking for it in that Module 7 project, okay? So just a reminder, you're not starting over. You're not starting from scratch. You're using what you already have. You just need to make sure it's all put into one document. So your instructor is opening one document that'll list all the questions and all the pieces and parts of that template that you worked with all term, okay? And if you didn't use the template, you made your own, just make sure that all the questions and all the pieces and parts are there, okay? It is 3 to 5 pages when it's all said and done. So when you open up the instructions and you see that 3 to 5 page document, a lot of students get confused and think they're starting something new. You're not. You've already done it. You've already done the work. You just might have to go back, edit, clean it up, make sure everything looks good, and submit one final document. Make sure you look at that instructor feedback in the Grade Center from week to week. If you had edits, make them. And if you get stuck and you're not sure about something, reach out to your instructor, because they're the ones that saw how you did on each one of those project drafts, and they can give you that guided feedback to make sure you're on the right track. And don't forget, of course, to utilize your resources, which is why Allison and I come together in this week 6 webinar, because we want to talk to you early about utilizing your resources so that you are successful in submitting this final project, that guidebook. So let me introduce to you the most amazing Allison Johnson. She is part of our SNHU Academic Support team. I love to share fun facts about any of the guests that we have here in my webinars, because I think that you guys get to know me through the term, you guys get to know your faculty through the term, and it's just really important for you to be able to put a face with a department as you're navigating your classes here at SNHU from term to term. So some fun facts about Miss Allison is she used to teach high school English in a rural town that didn't even have a traffic light. Anybody else there? Anybody from like a small town? I'm from a tiny little town. There's like less than 500 people in my town, and I have a blinking light. She's been an academic advisor for online students, so she's worked with students just like you for a very long time. She loves to work with students who have been out of school for a while. Any of you been out of school for a long time? Like maybe this is the first time back in years. For some of you, you might be brand new to school, but she has that experience, and that's some of her favorite pieces to work with. But my favorite thing is that she is a huge fan of stand-up comedy and has a collection of comedy records. But the most important thing for you to understand is that she is one of the many people that are here to support you and your success here at the university. So how this is going to work is I'm going to ask Allison some questions, and then she is going to answer them. And then once we get all done, I'm just going to really quick go into the IDS 105 classroom, show you a few things about where to click and where to find some things, and then we'll let you guys be on your way. So Allison, tell us, how do students access academic support?
Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I'm going to give you both. So when you're in your classroom, you will see just right above the banner that menu that we're looking at right there, course menu tools, right next to Shapiro Library. Also another great resource is where you find us. If you click on academic support right at the top, that takes you to the academic support area in another tab. So you'd have your class and academic support on 2 different tabs. We are also underneath, I think, module 8 when you look at that little module overview. But I think this is the easiest thing to boop on to get over to us. So this is how.
All right, Allison. So students, as you guys know, there's so much really accessible to you from just a click away in your classroom. And once you kind of start clicking on things, you notice there's so many more things that you can find for your success. So Allison, once they click on academic support, this menu of services pulls up. Can you go through these options for us? And then can you let us know too, a lot of times students are confused thinking that academic support is only for specific classes. Can they use it for all classes? Is it just for one class? Give them all the details.
Yes. So it is for your whole entire academic journey here at SNHU. So if you are working on associates, a bachelor's, all the way through grad students, so if you come back and are working on a graduate degree, academic support is in every single one of the classes, and you're able to access us in every single class that you're in. And we have a lot to access. And so that's why I'm going to take some time to explain. I like to call it the menu, because we can all relate to the experience of looking at a menu and deciding what to order and when to order it. So a lot of what you're going to use through academic support is going to be dependent on what the moment needs, what the class needs. Every class is going to be different. Every week is going to be different. And so that's why we have so many different options, so you can access in a way that's as useful to you as possible. So I'm just going to go through the pictures here, and you get a reminder, and I'll also post a quick video walkthrough too. And so, of course, if you have questions, pop them in the chat. So probably the easiest, most accessible one is the 24/7 drop-in tutoring. It's 24/7. So if you're working really late, really early, and think about this kind of like an appetizer or a small thing. it's usually text-based chat, and the tutors have whiteboards. There are some voice chat capabilities in 24/7 drop-in. It's not always available. So think about when I go into 24/7, it's probably going to be chat-based. Maybe I'll be able to talk to a person, but it might be more texting kind of chat. This can be really helpful for those small things, right? Like I'm really stuck on this math problem or this one concept, or I have a thesis statement that I'm not really sure I did understand what a thesis statement is. Something manageable that you can chat back and forth and get some ideas or use a whiteboard to figure out. That's going to be helpful. That's what the 24/7 is there for. Written feedback is also really accessible, and both of these are like the kind of, you don't have to pre-schedule. You can just be working and say, hey, I need this. And so the written feedback isn't immediate because it goes to a real human, a tutor, who will take a look at what you have written. You don't have to have a completed assignment. It can be the beginning of an assignment. It can be a complete assignment as well. When you click on that Try It Now button for written feedback, you will be taken to a form to fill out. The more information you put in that form, in terms of where you're at with the assignment, details about the assignment, any feedback you've heard from the instructor that they want you to pay attention to, the better and more tailored the feedback the tutor will provide you. It comes back within 12 hours, usually faster. But I always say give it a day because you never know how busy it is, and it gives you time to read it and to make the changes to it as well. It can also help you to kind of set deadlines earlier to make sure, hey, I want the written feedback, so I'm going to move up my deadline so that I can get it. Workshops. If you're enjoying these workshops, we have a lot of them, and we have a wide variety of workshops on every type of topic. So from statistics to APA citations and writing better, it's all there in the workshops. And we have a bunch of different types of workshops too. So somewhere you're presenting some information, you're given information, some where you're collaborating with peers, and then we also have drop-in sessions or office hours. So the drop-in and office hours are come with questions like APA or statistics. So those things can really be helpful. I always recommend, if you're considering a workshop, you have kind of two options. When you click on workshop, you see a list. If you hover over it, it tells you what to expect. If you have a free moment, you can always pop over there and just see what's running for that day and try it out. You can also look at the list and plan ahead and decide, I'm going to put that on my calendar and attend that one. And oftentimes they'll repeat for the next term. So if there's one that you're really interested in, but you're not really in that class, or a class that is writing intensive, then you can always save it for later. Peer tutoring, and I see something in the chat about peer mentors. So peer mentors are a little bit different from peer tutors. Peer tutors are given additional training. They are students at SNHU who are successful in their courses. They are maybe towards the end of graduation or have just graduated. They receive some additional training, but they give some very content-specific guidance in a one-on-one tutoring session. So these two options we're talking about now are pre-scheduled. You have to get them on your calendar and get in and kind of plan around it, but worth it because sometimes you just need to talk to a person, have some face-to-face, and have more space to talk. And so these sessions with the peer tutors, with academic coaches, are 45 minutes long, and it gives you the time to kind of stretch out, think, talk through things. And in the peer tutoring realm, these are people who have been given additional training, are really good at their content area, and can really help get unstuck and get some clarity on the things that you need for the course that you're in. So helping figure out and break down assignments, figuring out certain concepts, tips on success and strategies. That's kind of like a one or two, like, hey, I might check in with the peer tutor every so often for some questions that I have regarding the class. Academic coaching also is that one-on-one, but this is more if you feel like you have a goal for yourself that you really need to work on over time, then you can click the button and schedule a planning session with an academic coach. That planning session, you will meet with the person, myself or one of my fellow team members, and we'll kind of get to the bottom of what's going on and what you might need support with. Some of the skills that we work on in academic coaching might be time management and prioritization, reading comprehension, support for learning differences, critical thinking and problem solving. When you click on that, it has a couple of skills to choose from, but if you have been away from school for a while or haven't been an online learner yet, this might be an area to set a goal. Say, like, I'd really like to get better at managing my time and knowing when to fit school in. You and your coach would then set a 3-week plan of meeting, and then you would start working on that goal to develop and improve. We also have, in addition to the frequently asked questions tab, we have resources. So we have our own YouTube channel that has videos, and then we also have some on-demand sheets and infographics and things to help with all of your classes. That is a lot. So, and I see some people have already said the workshops are great and highly recommend the workshops. So I'm so glad some people have already tried those out, and thank you for trying out. And I always think it's great to hear from other people who have experienced it. So good.
There is a ton of support that y'all have at the Academic Support Center team. So did y'all learn something new? Because I think sometimes, especially in the beginning, if you haven't been at SNHU for very long, or you just haven't had a chance to explore a lot of the resources, you didn't even realize that all of this was here at your fingertips. So I think it's really good to kind of do a run through of the menu and decide like what you want and what would best support you in your success as you navigate your classes here at the university. And I will tell you, the students always tell me they enjoy the workshops and the tutoring, but so many students will tell me, I wish I would have used the written feedback services earlier. Like they slept on it, like they didn't use them, they didn't reach out. And then they kind of struggled. And then now they're in week 6 and they're trying it and they're like, oh my gosh, I could have done this all term long. It was just a really great, it boosted their confidence and their writing and like their assignments as they turned them in. So just know that that's out there, y'all. Don't be hesitant to try it. It's just a click away. Nobody even has to see your face. That's what I tell students all the time. So as students are putting together this guidebook, Allison, do you have any tricks or tips for them on their success or things that they should really be kind of aware of so they can turn in their best product?
So the thing I often talk with people about is that unfortunately instructors don't have ESP yet. Maybe some do, I don't know, but they're not mind readers. They don't know exactly what you're thinking. And so on this assignment and any assignment, the more examples, the more details you can provide, the more they get an understanding of where you are coming from. And so that's the biggest tip and trick that I talk about in general in terms of writing and completing assignments is make sure you're giving enough detail, especially if it's a template. We kind of go into form filling mode or worksheet mode where we maybe don't restate the question and the answer or give enough detail. We just kind of let the worksheet and the template do the work. But make sure you're giving enough insight to your mind with your examples and details that you're providing to the instructor so they really know where you're coming from. And then also make sure that you're at this point in the term, you have a good idea of your instructor's voice. You know what they're looking for. Go back and look over some of the previous feedback. That's what this week is about too. So look at what you've learned so far about what they're looking for. And then when you're done, think about that and say, what am I going to hear from my instructor? Anticipate it. Think like your instructor. Put your grading hat on and grade yourself. Pass it to somebody else maybe, but take the time to really think about how you did before you submit it. And I think that's pretty much it. The written feedback is also a really good option. And just remember the menu is a menu, right? So oftentimes at a restaurant, you might be reluctant to try something. And then just like Melanie said, you have that moment where you're like, oh, I should have been doing this all along. So early on in the stage, try out as many of the options as possible so you know what to go back to.
Great advice as always. So where my students like to put their assignments off, you like to procrastinate, do things at the last minute. This is why Allison and I do this webinar early, because your guidebook is not due until module 7. Well, that's next week, right? Like it's due Sunday of that module. However, we like to talk about it early because it's worth such a significant chunk of your grade. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident getting it turned in and know what to do. But however, we also know that sometimes you could be the most scheduled, have the best plans, and life happens, right? So Allison, what are some recommendations that you have for students if they procrastinate, put things off, like to make sure they still turn in a great final project, that guidebook, or even if like life just kind of falls apart, what should they do?
So funnily enough, I actually host a workshop on managing procrastination. So if you're a person that if you notice that you procrastinate more, and especially if it feels really hard, we do have some workshops to help with that, that chronic procrastination piece. But the thing that I always say is everybody procrastinates, whether they admit to it or not. It just happens at some point. And there's a lot of reasons. It could be busy schedules. It could also be feelings getting in the way of it. So I want to talk about that. So sometimes people will be reluctant to hand something in late because it's late. What's the point? I'm going to lose points. But it's better to get something in and get some points rather than nothing, right? So 0 is 0, but submitting it, being honest with your instructor, putting something in the comment section, emailing your instructor and saying, I did my best, I got it in, that's being honest, and that's letting the instructor know how they can support you. And so just getting it in, I love that just do it motto, right? Because 0 is always going to be 0. Some points is better than nothing. I think we mostly agree, but I think sometimes perfectionism can get in the way and say, like, I'd rather have a 0 than lose points. That might not be the best mindset. So consider getting it turned in, being honest with the instructor, and just doing your best with the assignment. Just get it done. And a lot of those things that we talked about, still checking yourself, saying, okay, I might lose 10%, but I'm getting points and I'm doing it and I'm showing ownership. I'm showing that I'm doing this. And that positive self-talk can be really helpful too. So those are just some tips.
Those are awesome tips for your success. I'm going to flip my camera back on. Thank you so much, Allison, for spending a little bit of your afternoon with students. I hope that you've learned a ton about how to utilize the academic services or the academic support team and why to utilize them for your success. Hopefully you'll give them a chance and an opportunity to work with you this term, especially as we get into these next couple of weeks, because time moves really quickly. But a couple of reminders as we kind of wrap up today's session. I will be sharing my screen here in just a little bit of a classroom, but as you get ready to utilize and as you get ready to do your guidebook, it is so important that you remind yourself and know how you're graded. So as you know, when you go into module 7 and you go over that assignment overview, the rubric is there, right? So make sure you kind of run through that, know what you're going to be graded on, what you should be doing. Use the template. For many of you, you've been using the template all term long. Like, don't change things. Don't make things crazy. You just want to make sure that you go back in and look at the graded feedback on each of those project drafts that your faculty gave you and see if you needed to make any changes or updates. You're just cleaning stuff up, right? You're not starting anything new. But make sure if you separated those documents into separate project drafts, you turn in one cohesive document. Same thing if you created kind of your own documents for each project draft, make sure that you turn them all into one cohesive document. But the biggest thing is if you guys are stuck or you have questions, reach out to your instructor, again, because they can see the work you've done all term long, and they can give you those really like detailed points for your success in case you have a lot of edits or changes to make. Okay. Utilize your resources. You guys got to meet Allison today. The academic support team, all of the humans there are absolutely wonderful to work with, but you also have your advisor, your instructor, you have the learning community. You can go back and watch this webinar as many times as you need to. I'll get it downloaded and uploaded to that YouTube channel here within the next 24 hours. But as you work through your guidebook, remember too, to be yourself. Use examples, use details, share your thoughts, because it's going to be something that'll help somebody navigate these situations should they ever find themselves in it, right? That's the whole purpose of this guidebook. So let me go ahead. I'm going to sneak out of here and go into our classroom space. So hopefully you guys can all see my classroom. I'm going to check the chat really quick and make sure that everybody can see everything. Sometimes it takes a minute to kind of come over. Sounds like you guys can see it. Perfect. So as a reminder, we're in week 6. So this week in week 6, you can always find that underneath learning modules, module 6, right? This week you have that journal assignment and your discussion. So don't forget, if you haven't already, get your initial discussion post in. Peer responses and journal assignment due by Sunday. But for next week, that guidebook that we've been talking about here in today's webinar, underneath module 7, when you go into module 7, there's a couple things I wanted to point out. One, you guys will see this 7-1 discussion, project discussion, non-graded. This is an opportunity for you to give any feedback regarding kind of how you put your guidebook together, what processes you used, if you thought they were a great way to manage your time, what you thought maybe about the project in general. This is not a place where you put anything regarding your actual project. You do not upload your project here. It's just really kind of an opportunity to help discuss like tips for writing, motivational strategies, and just share ideas of how you put that guidebook together. This is not graded. You do not have to do it, but it is here if you wanted to share your thoughts. And sometimes it's kind of cool to pop in there and see what students have to say about how they put the project together, especially if you're stuck. Your project is right here under the 7-2 project. Click on guidelines and rubrics like always, right? Now, when y'all do that, as a reminder, it's going to go over the whole overview of the project. So it's going to talk about the scenarios again. Again, you've already picked a scenario back in week 2. You've been using it all term long, right? It's going to go over those things, it's going to talk about the directions, and it's going to list every single piece and part of that project. Under what to submit, you will see this project template. That is the template you've been working with all term long. I'm going to click on my example of it. Granted, yours does not have highlights, but mine does. It's just so you can kind of see the different sections. When you turn your document in, this needs to all be completed and filled out. You've already done that, right? We've already done it all term long. So just remember, you're just going in, cleaning it up, editing it, and fixing anything that you might have needed to fix, okay? That is all you are doing for this final project. If you're stuck, if you have questions, remember right here is that project rubric. Reach out to your instructors, utilize the academic support team. And I wanted to show you just really quick too. You just click on them right from up here, academic support. It's going to pull up the menu of options that you can utilize for your success. My computer is being slow, but you'll see all of the different menu options that Allison talked about. Written feedback, click on try it now, fill out the description of what you want the person to be checking, looking for, and then you'll submit it. Remember, it can take 12 hours. I always say give it a day, give it 24 hours just in case, especially as they get busy in these final 2 weeks of the term. But that's it, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this so I can check the chat and see if there was any questions in the chat at all. Is there any questions? Do you guys have any questions? Was that helpful? Was it helpful to see like where to find things, kind of an understanding of what you're supposed to be doing for next week for your guidebook? Again, if you're stuck, if you have questions, if you're not sure about something, reach out to your instructor, check the learning community, watch this video again. But the bottom line is, you guys, you only have a couple weeks left. Next week, we're going to be in week 7. You're going to have week 7 and then week 8, and you're going to be all done with the term, and then you're going to roll right in to your next one. But yes, Emily, very good. The end is in sight. And hopefully if you've never utilized any of these tools or you didn't know where they were, now you know how to find these resources and how to utilize them, because sometimes we just need an extra person to look over our writing assignments, right? Sometimes we just need somebody to kind of guide us and show us like where to click and where to find things. Like that for many of us is something that we need. I know I'm a visual learner. That's how I learn things. And so it's really important to kind of utilize the services that are just here at your fingertips. We are so excited for y'all. Finish week 6 strong. I know you're going to rock week 7. And then I want you to make sure that you guys celebrate the end of your term. Again, if you need anything, you have questions, let us know. We're all done for today, y'all. Have a wonderful weekend, and you got this.